Fresh news, smart talk, all day. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
This morning, and welcome back to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, your station for fresh news, smart talk, all day. It is Tuesday, the 22nd of March, 2022. That's right, that's 2222. And you're on the clock with Erin Greene. It's a Tuesday. That means it's a World News Tuesday with Mr. Mark Palmer. Good morning, Mr. Palmer.
Hey, good morning.
How you do? Listen, there's plenty to talk about, and there's this story that's floating around. The royals are coming to visit, and I like this story because it sort of brings the global to the local, right? And it's a space where we can assess both the global and local impact of this trip, the global and local impact of imperialism, the global and local impact of the crown, the global and local impact of our heritage. Oh boy, what a time, what a time. Good morning, Mark. I excited to talk about it. There's plenty of things I want to talk about. As you could see, I have on my dashiki this morning. I am taking donations. I need a dashiki a day for the next week and possibly for the next year. The Royals' visit reminded me that we are in the 8th year of the International Decade for Peoples of African Descent. And that's very important. That's very, very important. As we could see across the country, across the region, protests have sprung up. Protests and demonstrations showing people's concern with the state, their respective states' current relationship with the crown. And so we want to talk about some of that as well. Like I say, there's both local and global discussions taking place. But also, there's some other stuff in the news I thought maybe we could touch on. Ukraine and Eastern Europe. Sanctions against Russian interests. And what does that have to do with the Bahamas? And what I thought was interesting as well, has Ukraine become the new never forget? Right? The new we shall never forget. Because it seems as if we've already forgotten the African Holocaust and the African experience. And maybe we spend some time taking a look at racism through the Ukraine lens. Mm-hmm. And then there's also another story, World War III, like the hashtag World War III is trending on social media, Twitter in particular. But why? Because...
Why are we so bloodthirsty that we would actually do that? And it's incredible, isn't it?
That's one question I was going to ask. Why they calling it World War if I know they didn't write the Bahamas and ask us if we were participating. I know for several reasons. Because my Minister of Foreign Affairs would have told me. He would have told me, and he and the Prime Minister would have consulted with me and other citizens about whether we were ready to be a part of a world war. You know, like when your parents tell you, no, you're not ready to date yet. It's kind of like that. I don't think we're ready for World War, let alone World War III. I just can't imagine what we could make, like what we could bring to the war. Maybe we could bring beer and get them drunk, like beer and rum, and get the other side drunk, and then we could run away with their things.
One click.
Yeah. Or sans, or whatever, anything Bahamian. Anything Bahamian. Then, there's a story I wanted to talk about from yesterday. I'm still not sure if we're going to get to it. The two stories in the paper last week, Friday, Mark, both speak to the sort of advancement of technology or advancement of technological regulations. I like to say it because I don't know if it's really the advancement of technology in the Bahamas, but the advancement of regulators. And the first story is titled BTC Tax Disruptors Like Netflix and Hulu. And that story talks about BTC is petitioning or lobbying the government to create a tax structure because BTC says that what they call OTT, over-the-top service providers, so that would be like Netflix and Hulu. And it would be HBO and Showtime as well, except it's those services that I think you get over the top of your traditional cable services. I think that's sort of what it is. And BTC is saying, hey, we think that you should tax these people, these companies, because they are making money on our networks without, paying us anything. And, the first thing I thought was it's 2022, that plantation model style piracy has been outlawed in several jurisdictions. But maybe I'm not reading the situation correctly.
What happened with WhatsApp? Because I remember that debate was about 3 years ago when WhatsApp started up and took away 50% of BTC revenue, or some incredible figure at that time.
Right.
What happened there? Did they ever tax them? I don't believe they did they?
No, I'm not sure that they can tax them if that's possible even. And so the article discusses, in the article, BTC makes some suggestions on, what they could do. But I just find, first of all, and I don't know maybe if this is necessarily the space for the conversation, but I wanted to talk about it in global news, right? Because I just so used to what people is get in global. I so used to what people is get in foreign that when companies here try to sell me world-class services, I could tell right away that there's nothing world-class about, it's nothing global about it. It doesn't feel to me that it aligns or adheres with what the global standards and practices are. Now, I've been informed that this is a trend, right? The industry is shifting. And I'm very disappointed in BTC about the whole situation. Because, first of all, I don't even know if BTC is providing the service that it advertises across all of its platforms. That's the first thing for me. If you say you're selling me the internet, right? And that's what you say. Selling you the internet. You could go online and look at whatever you want to look at. Why now are you telling me that you could look at whatever you want to look at, but some of the things you want to look at, they're going to have to pay a tax to come on our network so you could look at them, right? And that seems, at first that seems okay because you're not really taxing me. You say you're going to tax those companies, right? But it's the Bahamas, And the consumer always pays the tax at the end of the day. That's how plantation model systems work. So even if you taxing an OTT service like Netflix or Showtime, ultimately you're going to be taxing me. And I will have to pay. I'll have to cover the cost of that tax. But I'm 45, right? But as far as I am aware, the internet was created, it was intended to avoid that, to give consumers
choice.
Right. And access without all of the bureaucracy. And so I'm finding that a little problematic for a company to tell me, so you're paying us to access the internet, and then what we want you to do is we want you to pay us to access things that you want to access on the internet. And we know that you're going to have to pay the company that owns the thing you want to access as well. We're not worried about that. And why? Because you're losing money, but you were never making that money.
Exactly.
You were never offering a service comparable to Netflix, or Hulu, or YouTube, or Sling TV. You never intended on offering it. I mean, and I think I could say that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how WhatsApp, that took away their texting and
Yeah.
texting revenue, and that was over their data. So I can understand how that would affect their revenue model, and
Right.
They would have a claim, but this I can't see it. Where does it begin? Where does it end? Yeah.
Right, and I'll brag a little bit and say, yeah, I was a part of one of the greatest shows on television, right? And the people that I work with were a part of some of the other greatest shows on television. But we still ain't competing. We're still not competing. HBO Now, Amazon Video, YouTube, Hulu. You're not compete. You can't. What share of that market did you hold? And then, the sort of facetious part of me wants to ask, how far from ZNS do y'all think y'all are? Y'all know there's some of us who remember. We remember. And see, not old enough to just be thankful for anything, We're not that old yet to just be thankful for anything. But we remember when this, ZNS was all that you could have. But now, you telling us we have choice, but all we getting is ZNS. We could talk about the inability to provide the service that you already advertise and we already pay for, right? We could talk about that. But I'm still not clear. Like, I couldn't distinguish between sure and clear just now. I'm still not clear on the logic and the premise. Dear BTC, you're not performing well enough to even make this suggestion. I mean, y'all still have technicians that don't know what the legal height is, the legal requirement for hanging lines in the road. Y'all still have technicians that think it makes sense to tell people, well, miss, how I gonna measure the height of the line in your house on a slope? You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that I'm certain that BTC hasn't initialized 100% of their voicemail services. That's what I'm saying. But I'll put it all aside. If BTC could tell me, what is the market share that you're losing? And what is the thing that you were offering to compete with them? Because it couldn't be your pay service, your pay TV service. It couldn't be that thing that hasn't been working for years. That's not what y'all talking about, right? You're not talking about your television service where the guide doesn't align with the actual programming. That's not what y'all talking about, right? Is that the share that y'all talking about? Y'all can't be talking about the service that you say you selling us, but you can't even go in and adjust the guide. You can't even convince your local televisions to give you the right information for programming to put on the guide. And now y'all want us to pay y'all top dollar so we could sit on the side porch and watch ZNS all day? Dear Bahamas, y'all keep acting global. Y'all keep pretending to be global. But all we getting is local. All we getting is local. Also, I just want to point out that article, BTC tax disruptors like Netflix and Hulu, which is from the Nassau Tribune on Friday of last week, indicates, and it says, Tribune Business, though, has previously been presented with evidence by subscribers that VAT is already being levied on Netflix services consumed in the Bahamas. So just how many times are we going to tax a tax? How many times are you going to tax a Bahamian? As many times as you could get away with it? Is that what the answer is now? I mean, we know that's what the answer is. I know that personally. That's what the answer is. You're gonna get taxed as many times as you can tolerate by as many people who could stick their hand in front of your face. Boy, Purdue, I'm going to ask you to play that song, Tip, 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 Tip. Everybody love Tip. Mark, I'm going to go to the phone line. Dear callers, don't mind me having this little talk today, you know. Let us measure our speech and not say anything that will cause you or me to get in trouble or not get anything from a particular cable service again. Don't think, sir, that I don't remember the message that you sent to me almost 20 years ago. Producer, let's go to the phone, please. Good morning, caller. You're on the clock.
Good morning, Erin, Greene.
Good morning. How you doing?
And good morning to your guest. Do I allow to exercise my constitutional rights to express myself?
Yeah, but be careful because all constitutional rights come with some restrictions and all responsibilities.
I understand the rules and regulations, but you are talking about BTC, right?
But I mean, that's what the article is talking about.
All right, article is talking about, yeah, article.
Yeah.
But I mean, the discussion, should I raise the discussion?
Oh, I mean, we're talking about all service providers in the country.
Well, you know, first of all, BTC's problem, their own problem, and they're blaming other people, is bad service. They need to put proper management in place that can bring them revenue, proper supervisors that can bring in revenue. And when you ask to speak to a manager with the problem is not resolved, they're supposed to call you right away and try to resolve the problem. You're not hearing KO Bahamas complaining, right? They're not complaining. You hear them complaining in the Tribune?
No, they say they're trying to get out that business entirely. Well, it appears to me that that's what they're saying. I'm not 1,000%
No,
certain.
I'm trying to say they are not complaining. Because the article you read, that I'm paraphrasing my own pocket either way, they're blaming Netflix and all these other flicks, right? But KO Bahamas is not blaming anybody. Their revenue good because of their professionalism. I think this government totally let go BTC and let them strive on their own privatization with good shareholders like me. BTC would strive. But you cannot mix government and private together. Yes, government would get a percentage, even if they privatize totally. That's good.
Okay.
But if you don't get it over there, BTC would always be back in the Tribune.
All right. Look here. Thank you very much. That's a very interesting point that you make. So what I want to say is in the article, it appears to me that what Cable Bahamas is saying is that they are moving out of that space, that they already see the problems, if you could call them, in the dynamics in the space and probably are not prepared to restructure their company to engage that space in a competitive manner. I think that's what Cable Bahamas is expressing in that article. But I like the point that you made, and I think that that's something that we need to explore. Perhaps a part of the problem is that Caribbean government culture and Caribbean commercial or corporate culture cannot exist in the same place. And either it has to be all government or all corporate in terms of the management, the day-to-day management of the space. And I'm going to say that because I think that a part of the issue is a lack of regulations, right? I think a part of what we're dealing with is a lack of regulations in the space, which then allows for anything to happen if there are no mechanisms governing, right? Like truly or substantively governing the space. And so, the customer service issue, I will throw that out there for other people to respond to. Another caller quickly. Good morning, caller. You're on the clock.
Yes, good morning, Erin. Alan Johnson. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. How you do?
All right. I think what you guys are doing is conflating and convoluting a number of issues in the technology delivery arena.
Okay.
Essentially, I do agree with BTC. What you're talking about is e-commerce, and the Bahamas must now move to accelerate its capture of all type of e-commerce that terminates in the Bahamas.
Okay, pause right there. E-commerce. So what you're saying is like the government need to be able to extract as much money as possible for any type of digital service taking place in the Bahamas.
That's delivered in the Bahamas. What happens is if you're in the Bahamas delivering outside of the Bahamas, you should be exempted, which is the attempt that the previous administration did. They just didn't put any clarity on it.
Okay, so hold on. That means if I'm creating a product in the Bahamas, but I'm using the internet to sell it outside of this jurisdiction, that's what you mean?
You do not pay.
Okay, good.
Right. And but other countries do it. In fact, we need to move for regulation that makes Facebook, Google, and the rest of them responsible and responsive to Bahamians. And you see it do it in different countries where they are called to be accountable, even for violation of data privacy and other data laws, where they pay billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars in
But
fines.
hold on, isn't that happening in our jurisdiction already? Barbados already petitioned Facebook for access to particular accounts for some reason.
No, not for legal reasons. I'm saying for data protection purposes. In fact, for the Bahamas having the potential of being the most, it is the most digitally prepared, and we just haven't utilized it. We have to begin to look at the broad spectrum of exactly how do we capture the digital market. Now, we talk about these green, blue, orange, knowledge, digital, conceptual, and aquamarine economies. Mm-hmm. All of these have deliverables. These are export products.
Okay.
And so the problem is that people are now exporting them to us. Basically, we are importing them without paying. Now, we have to be producers. We often talk about, farming and all these other things, but we have to be producers in all different arenas. And so when we begin to talk about having platforms concerning intellectual property protection, et cetera, these are things you have. Now, I would tell you that BTC, for what they asked for, a proper regulation would could be the death of them anyway, because essentially if you properly regulated that environment, you would have open access, including Cable Bahamas, also having Cable Bahamas fall in line with intellectual property protection. You will have access to all of those things that you see blocked from, so you can't access because you're in the Bahamas, mm-hmm. including all of the premium services from those other streaming services. So they would serve as a dead keel to many of the services that's provided to by Cable Bahamas and Alive and BTC. Uh-huh. I mean, yeah. So essentially, what we have to have a look at how are we going to revamp and rebuild the whole digital economy. And when you talk about the QoS, quality of service, those individuals internationally will also have to meet those standards. But those within our country, and this comes under the purview of IRCA right now, mm-hmm. because IRCA should have had a couple of different committees for the last 10 to 20 years they've yet to form, including customer service community. So I don't remember the exact name of them, but there's what's been a number of committees right now, semi-independent of IRCA, that look for these quality of services and other complaints and things that happen. So I'm saying now we are in a critical crisis situation where we need to look at all sorts of revenue. Mm-hmm. And so when you have services that even passing for the network is like let's use an example. You pay for the roads already, right? Mm-hmm. So how come when you get on the bus, you pay the bus driver?
No, that I have a better example. If I pay in tax and I paying for the roads already, right?
Right.
Why do I have to pay a toll to use a road?
Right. And that's a good example, because essentially these are added services, and so you're paying for access to the internet, which basically is the free services. But when I begin to sell things to you, first I generate revenue, then I'm obligated.
See, hold on. This is where we hit the rub. So we on the internet, and I pay to get on the internet.
But you have that right.
Right. Now I want to buy things from people. So you telling me I got to pay a tax to be able to buy things from people on the internet?
Yes. Not buy things. It's a deliverable. See, you could walk up and down the road all you want, even and do whatever. But when I begin to utilize the road for which I am making no contribution, then I need to put something, because these.
But in the Bahamian context, we are making a contribution.
No.
to the road. And in the internet context, why aren't you taking the money that I pay you for accessing the internet to make sure that you could sustain the internet?
Let's use an example. Let's say BTC and Alive, them stop selling everything. And now we have this digital infrastructure. These Netflix and all these people are making millions of dollars utilizing that infrastructure. So that's like me billing the road out of my pocket so everybody else can drive on it and make millions of dollars. And so you have to pay to maintain the very infrastructure for which they need to deliver the services to you.
But we're paying that now.
No, you're paying for a service for outside of it. See,
in the
digital realm.
So you're telling me I'm paying to open the door to get into the internet when I pay BTC, but if I want to actually do things.
No, you can do whatever you want, long as. See, I'm saying to you, when somebody begin to use the service for profit, that's what I'm saying. You could use it for non-profit basis, even for your profit basis. But when somebody is using it to deliver a product, what you say to Netflix is, tell you what, so that you don't use the infrastructure that I'm spending millions of dollars to maintain, you find another way to deliver to them. Because if they send it to you to satellite, they would pay satellite to deliver that.
Okay, but let's talk about the whole purpose of the internet. The reason it was created was to avoid.
No, you're confusing the two different things. The internet was for sharing information in the wide. See, we have a blended.
So what's the other thing I confused?
Worldwide. See, yes, what has happened now? We use the World Wide Web and the internet to kind of like interchangeably, right? And so the internet was for the interconnectivity of schools and universities and all these things for exchanging of information. Hence came the World Wide Web, which kind of make a hybrid where, before if I wanted to say go to Microsoft, I had to go 192.168.99.1, right? Now I have to just type in the word Microsoft because of 1992, which is the World Wide Web. Because
Because when I go in an email, I could post a link and then I could give the link a name. It sounds to me like I just renaming the link.
That's what the World Wide Web allows you to do.
See, that's what I say in C. Allen Johnson. It sounds like a bunch of capitalist piracy, and it seems like governments are just spinning illusions.
No, but see, what you should then do is demand that Netflix deliver to you for free, because the internet is free.
So another way of looking at it, Erin, if you have a garden, right, and you're growing crops in it, and then somebody else comes along from the next door, right? And they come and they start using your land and planting some crops, and you'd expect them to pay something for it because they're going to go and sell that. So I think that's probably a better analogy.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. BTC don't own the internet. I own the internet.
But you're not using the internet. No, Erin,
pause.
You're not using the internet. You're using the infrastructure.
But see, Alan, no, you're missing the point. BTC don't own nothing.
No,
pause. BTC doesn't own anything. Brave Davis doesn't own anything.
Right.
The Bahamian people own it, and the power to make decisions is invested in them, but not without a need to come back to the Bahamian people. It's premised on the idea that the BTC could own the Bahamian people's internet.
But BTC don't own the internet. Nobody does. See what I'm saying?
So why is BTC trying to tell Netflix they owe them money?
Because they're using the infrastructure to access
what infrastructure? The internet?
No, there's some fiber and some other switches and
that belong to me. That belonged to me.
Well, that's what I'm saying to you. They're asking you the tax you pay is for the maintenance of it.
No, that's not what's going to happen.
I'm saying to you.
No, that's what they're saying, but that's not what's going to happen. And this is where the problem.
No, but this is where.
But see, Alan, hold on, pause. This is where the problem really lies. I appreciate what you're saying. That's why I let you say it, because I know that I am not expert, and I know that I didn't have a full grasp on the space. But the point that I am making is this, C. Allen, right? BTC is saying, yeah, Erin, this is your things. And to make sure that you always in good standing, I'm going to tax them people for your things. But the point is that me and everybody else who it belong to don't ever really get the benefit of any of it. We don't ever see that money being used to improve the service.
But see, that's a different argument.
So the point that I am making, my argument is this, right? And the argument that I make is this, is that BTC cannot make this move. The government cannot entertain the move.
They should.
Until
okay.
Until we see substantive regulations in the market.
But that's what I'm saying. That's IRCA and the government, right? That's actually the government. So I'm simply saying that this is why I say to you, we have to move to correct a lot of the facts. We're talking about digital this, digital that. We love to talk digital. And you always hear me talk about we need to address the infrastructure. For instance, we cried about selling BTC infrastructure, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. It still serves a purpose. It's a revenue generator. But the world is even moving away from that infrastructure, and that infrastructure itself now need a drastic upgrade. They were not concerned about that the infrastructure, you know. They were concerned about the switches that is no longer here. I'm simply saying it's time for us to look at building a 21st century interconnected infrastructure. And people call it 5G. But listen to me, please. 5G is not about cellular. You could happen to use cellular, and it's like saying you have a cup, and you say, well, you're making cups for wine. No, you didn't. You make a cup for liquid. But cellular happens to be just one of the liquids.
Right.
And so I'm simply saying is we need to have a conversation of redesigning this economy in a realistic 21st century, 22nd century prepared environment to allow Bahamians to actively participate with equity in it.
And to ensure regulations
that brings quality of service, that brings all of these things, and this can happen. Look at IRCA. The world has changed in the last 2 years. Uh-huh. Look at IRCA regulations. When has it changed? 10 years ago? Whatever amount of time ago? It's not keeping up because regulations should change almost on a yearly basis now based on it. And quality of service and penalties for the lack of quality of service is one of the best motivators for them to build capacity to do it. So I can tell you, BTC may be complaining is because what they're saying is that, yes, these people are not paying. I accept that argument. But they're saying, well, we don't maybe not have the correct capacity to carry all of these services. And this is why you see BTC doing a good thing for upgrading the infrastructure.
Man, see, Alan, look here. I can bring you on. I wanted to, and I want to thank Mark for his patience. I wanted to let you speak because my intro was a little broad and non-scientific. And so I appreciate you bringing in that balance and explaining the technical terms and where we have to stick a pin, right? And separate the issues. I really appreciate that. And I want to invite you on to flesh this out some more. Because as a consumer, all I have to say is this. First of all, I don't believe BTC could implement 5G technology. Second of all, if we don't have regulations in place to ensure that every citizen across the archipelago, regardless of economic status on the island, has access to the same technology. Until we could do that, the answer is no. And here's the second part. I ain't paying no money for no extra service to sit down at the end of the day and can't even call a technician or stay on the phone longer than 3 minutes to find out why I cannot access the things that I am paying for. And so my critique is not to say that the technology or the policies are bogus, but that the environment in which you are trying, and not you personally, in which they are trying to implement these things is not prepared for it. It don't make any sense. It's like doing what all of these people in this country doing, buying Teslas and Lamborghinis and SUVs and putting them on these roads. Because you can't hit the helicopter button and jump from Prince William intersection to the next Prince William intersection. Right? That's where the protest lies. And what is the sake of all of this technological advancement and people in suits lotioning each other if the average Bahamian, thank you, producer, if the average student can't access a tablet or internet for 2 whole years, while some students are being prepared to become citizens of other countries? Rant over. Thank you, producer. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, C. Allen Johnson. Stay tuned to Guardian Radio 96.9. We'll be right back after the break.
Fidelity, we're good for you. We know how important collecting your money can be to the success of your business. Start your relationship with Fidelity today so that we can show you the many options available to you with our merchant services. From click and pay options online to merchant terminals and e-commerce options. We're here to help your business succeed. For more details, speak to one of our business development officers at 356-7764 in Nassau or 352-6676 in Freeport. Visit our website at fidelitygroup.com or visit any of our branches.
Throughout our lifetime, we must all make decisions. No matter how we choose, the right one just needs to be made. Like having J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents and Brokers as your insurance partner. We've been serving the Bahamas for over 100 years. Whether you need home, motor, marine, or commercial insurance, make the right decision. Call 397-2100 or visit jsjohnson.com.
J.S. Johnson Insurance. Peace of mind.
One thing there is no debate about is that BTC has the best rates. Now, the best rates just got better because you pay half the price of the other guys with your BTC home internet and mobile services combined. Switching to BTC is a no-brainer because I pay less with BTC and get super fast internet with speeds up to 600 megs. The other guys, their internet only go up to 105 megs.
Get all the internet you want at half the price when you bundle your home internet and mobile. Visit a BTC store to make the switch today. Conditions apply.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Good morning and welcome back to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. You're on the clock with Erin, Greene, and my guest co-host today, Mr. Mark Palmer. Although I got to make my own disclaimer, producer, the rants that you heard in the previous portion of the show are attributed to Erin, Greene only. The common sense you heard was attributed to Mr. Mark Palmer and Mr. C. Allen Johnson. And once again, thank you, Mr. Johnson, for joining the conversation, and thank you, Mark, for bringing some balance to what is a lifetime of concern. But let me read some text quickly. Great show as usual. BTC Services was always extreme garbage juice. Okay, I just read it because you sent it, and I know a lot of people feel that way, and so I read it. Great show as usual. Get the Android box off eBay, boom, problem solved. Nah, it doesn't solve the problem, right? Because the industry is always looking for spaces where it's being, they're going to say, taken advantage of, and we're going to say where they're being made obsolete, right? And so we need a more substantive conversation to determine the way forward. Get to those texts in a bit. Another text says here, I agree totally with you, Erin. If BTC had its way, they block us from even accessing these streaming services. We are paying for their data, but they now want to add an additional barrier for us to access these services without making any effort to improve the services they offer to us. The government work ethic mentality is steep in that organization where we pay much higher for poor services. Another text, please tell C. Allen to stop talking nonsense. Facebook is not checking for a nation with a population of only 400,000, right? And this is what I thought initially. And sort of technically you're correct, but if the nation of 400,000's government petitions them, or CARICOM petitions them, or the United States of America says, hey, we think we have a copyright issue with people in the Bahamas, we need to access certain things, right? Then they check in, trust me. Another text, BTC is just trying to hinder Bahamians' use of these external streaming services because we are not using their under-desired product. We are already paying for internet use. And I want to say this, it's not even that it's under-desired. The question is, when does it work? When does it work? Does anybody ever have any information on how to make it work, when it will work? Do you ever have any sensible conversation about what compensation looks like for a lack of service? And a point that was raised in the break, when you tax these companies, where will the money go? Is it going into the consolidated fund? See, and that's what the problem is. Because if you're telling me that you need to tax the company so that you can ensure sustainability of your infrastructure, so you could improve and repair, expand and upgrade your infrastructure, then where is the money going? Is it going in the consolidated fund? No, sir. No, sir. That's the consolidated fund for your little children. You know when you get birthday money, you get prize money, and the people say, you give it to your mommy for safekeeping? That's the consolidated fund. You ain't gonna never see that again. Another text. Lady Greene, you are so correct, and all fiber infrastructure are owned by the people. We, the Bahamian people, support your argument and statements on ownership from the mayor of Grand Bahama. And that's it right there, right? People, look here, if people don't want no protests to go shut down no internet, they want their little grandbabies to be able to go to school. They want them to learn. They want to say, look here, child, I don't know that. Go on to Google and find out. That's not what we don't want to shut you all out or shut you down. We want greater access to information. We want to feel like we're getting the service that we pay for, and what we're paying you is being used to improve the service that we get. That's what we want. Oh, and we want technicians that know how to talk to people. We want technicians that know that if you say, Miss, you know the legal height? How are I supposed to measure it if your house on a slope? We don't want that. What confidence does that instill? Another text, C. Allen was spot on. I would like for him to be in the conversation on data democracy, data rights, and its monetization and data monetization. Third world leaders are asleep on the global plantation and lack a common agenda as a region. I thank you, text. And like I say, I am open to correction, man. And I appreciate that I wasn't having a technical conversation. And I invite industry experts, even if you're not an expert, but you have a position to engage, and let's flesh out these issues so people could hear the conversations. And that's what's missing in this town. There's a lot of professionals. Apparently, y'all are having conversations about the things that you do, but who knows it? Who is aware of it? Where are your journals? You could do a digital journal, you know, where you all come and meet and you present your paper. Everybody presents their paper, and you go online to the archive, and I could pull whatever I want. But how do people know? How do they create informed opinions if the experts don't talk to anybody? Thank you, text, and thank you again, C. Allen Johnson. Dear text, I can read this one time, okay? I can read it plenty, but Guardian Radio, give Miss Greene 2 hours, please. I don't know who that text is, but I like them. I like them very much. All right.
I think, I think the thing is there's a problem of leadership, but we always tend to look up to the leaders to save us, but they don't, because they have their particular interests, right? So if you have this conversation, it's going to be represented by corporate interests who want what's good for them, but what's good for us, which is the bit that you're pushing,
right? And
that has to come from the bottom up,
right?
And I'm not aware of any nonprofits that are actually in this space that are fighting for this, for these digital rights. There's a whole lot of stuff coming down the line in terms of censorship, in terms of digital control, ID, all those things, and we're not really part of that conversation, and we're relying on IRCA to kind of create this independent, shall we say, playing field that benefits the nation, but it seems to me that they're asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. Or maybe, although somebody...
Or not communicating what they're doing,
right?
In a way that we would understand it.
Or it's like they're in a Tesla, and somebody hit autopilot and then disable the switches. And there's nothing they could really do. And we could appreciate that. What I'm concerned about also is that in 2022, in the 21st century, access to broadband services, access to internet services should be recognized as a human right. Is it an inherent, inalienable right? No, but it turns out that if my government is telling me that it is not asking me, but telling me that it is in the process of digitizing everything, particularly pay services, then I don't have a choice. You telling me I don't have a choice, which means now that you don't have a choice. And it means now that the questions about net neutrality, about fair and equitable access to the internet, they're a must. And I got to say this like this because the fact that we had thousands of students unable to participate in education, despite there being a law that they had to, right? Y'all still allowed it to happen. So it's not like we take this thing seriously. We didn't take it seriously for the little poor black and conky Joe children. And I say that because don't act like little conky Joe children are disadvantaged by the lack of equitable access on the Family Islands and in New Providence.
Which comes back to where is the money going to? Because if you're on the Family Islands, there are plenty of areas where you can't get a live or BTC.
Yeah. And where's the oversight? Where's the oversight ensuring that the company that in its inception insisted that it's going to cover the breadth of the Bahamas, where is the pressure for that? I just, it feels like we're just repeating a cycle. And the things that I was certain would be resolved once I became an adult, not only am I faced with it, but I have people telling me these things. What are you talking about, Miss Greene? That's not a problem. Why are you talking about it like that? But it is a problem.
Well, it's very serious, particularly during the pandemic, and it's, my daughter goes to private school, right? She's very, very lucky to do so, and, lucky to have parents who have laptops and have a place where she can sit. But what we found is that there's a small percentage of people were able to do that, but the vast majority weren't able to get access to just basic data or broadband to be able to do that. So where's the money going to that's going to democratize these processes that everyone's going to be benefit? Because one of the things about the Chinese, whether you hate them or love them, one thing they understood early on was education was really key, because they did not know where the creators were coming from. We automatically assume they come from the middle classes and the upper class, but they took a view that it could come from anywhere in society. And I look at my friend like Desiree Cox, right? She grew up on East Street, somewhere on East Street, right? She didn't have any benefits. She's a PhD in doctor because she had access to facilities. And so the Chinese broaden great education system. It's meritocratic because they don't know it could be that kid from that family that's going to invent the next whatever.
Right.
And so we don't have that approach. We seem to have this same, approach where it's only going to come from the private sector.
Wow. And so, it reminds me of the article that we keep referencing, I think from 2014 or 2015 in the Jamaica Gleaner, the question, will the Caribbean produce the next Mark Zuckerberg? And the person says, and I say no, because our children still wondering if the power is going to be on when they get home. And that's not even it, because across the world, we know that children wonder if the power is going to be on when they get home. It's that in some other jurisdictions, the children know where they could go. They know, okay, if the power is not on when we get home, then plan B is to go to this community center. And yeah, you're too young, so you could stay with the neighbor, right? There's a backup plan, a communal plan. And here, you're left to your own devices. You left to figure it out on your own, even if you're just a 7-year-old child.
Because if you lose a year or two in education, really hard to catch up.
Absolutely.
Really hard, unless you have some incredible financial support.
That's another conversation, Mark. I'm hoping we can sit down and have, as a part of this segment, we talk about educational apartheid in the Bahamas, in the region, and the world, right? I'm coming to your text right now before we end the show. There's this quick story, this Asian guy, there's this top school in Asia, and that's part of the world. I mean, it's a joke compared to Princeton and Harvard and things like that. And it's really, if you want to do anything, you got to get in there. And this young man, he's, they're asking him, so the results are out soon, how you feel? He said, listen, it's a lot of pressure, but if I don't get in, I'm going to go to Princeton. I already got an offer from Princeton. I just go to Princeton, man. And that's what we're competing against in the world, but we can't let that frustrate our morals and our integrity. Let me get to some more text before we go, Mark. Miss Greene, you entertain, educate, and inform humorously in your native slang. You meet what takes to be on radio. Enjoy you always. Thank you very much, Texter. Erin is the best show on Guardian. Please, please, please give her an extra hour. Oh, I love Z Live too. Yes, but Z Live too. They all good, you know. Don't mind me. They all good. Dear Erin, you are always advocate to get free things. First, you didn't want to pay for sanitary pads, didn't want to pay for taxes, for taxing them. Now you don't want to pay for internet. Dear sir, first of all, you are half correct. I am from Acklands, and all the good things that God put on this earth are for all of us. But some of y'all out here wasting this money on 10 meat galas for people who could afford to buy the whole Western Hemisphere. So when we talk about, frugal, cheap, and tingsy, let's get them in the right order. Thank you, Texter. Another text, UN Human Rights Council has declared that broadband access is a human right, but human rights activists other than C. Alan Johnson is the only person I heard speak on this. Right, no, you're saying no other human rights activists, right? I missed the official declaration, but see, this is the point. I didn't need an official declaration to know. It has to be a human right. Come on. Because we've reached the point, I need you all to understand this, we've reached the point in our existence on the planet where you could go to jail for not having any money. You could go to jail for being broke. You could go to jail for not having a place to live. And you know why that's possible? Because we've allowed our governments to shirk or ignore their obligation, their constitutional, legal first, ethical second, moral third, obligation to ensure that all of their citizens could live a life free of violence and can have access to the basic things necessary for adequate human development. And I want you all to think on these things while you all try to figure out how to move Prince Kate and Prince William through the island without driving them past Government House.
Wow.
What an obstacle course. Thank you, producer. We're all out of time. Thank you very much, Mark. Listen, we are going to continue this conversation because we had this open letter to Prince William and the Duchess of Cambridge, Kate, from the Advocates Network in Jamaica. And we had another open letter to the Bahamian people and to the government from Candy Gibson and Foam Center. A demonstration, not a protest, but a demonstration. So we can get to that tomorrow and next week when you come back. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you again, C. Allen. Thank you to the texters and callers. And thank you to my producer. You guys stay tuned because Guardian Radio AM is up next. And like that texter said, then there's a whole full slate of shows y'all gonna enjoy. Have a great day, Bahamas.